In the year 1900, a small town of Milford was plagued by a series of gruesome murderers. The victims were all young women, and each one had been brutally murdered and mutilated in a similar fashion. The local authorities were at a loss as to who could be responsible for such heinous acts, and fear and paranoia began to spread throughout the community. The first victim was found in the early hours of a chilly October morning. Mary Jenkins was found in a secluded alleyway, her body brutally beaten and her throat slit. The police were quickly called to the scene, but they found no clues as to the identity of her killer. Over the next few weeks, more women turned up dead, each one in a similar state to Mary Jenkins. The townspeople were in a state of panic, and many of them began to lock themselves indoors at night, too afraid to venture outside. As the body count continued to rise, the police were no closer to finding the killer. They had no leads, no suspects, and no motive. The murders seemed to be completely random, and the killer appeared to be choosing his victims at random. One night, a young woman named Elizabeth was walking home from her job at the local factory when she was grabbed from behind. She was thrown to the ground, and her hand clamped over her mouth to stifle her screams. She could feel the cold steel of a blade against her throat, and she knew she was going to die. But just as the killer was about to strike, Elizabeth managed to break free and run for her life. She was able to give the police a description of her attacker, and they were handily able to put a face to the monster that had been terrorizing their town. The man they arrested was a local butcher named John Doe. He had always been considered a bit odd, but no one had ever suspected him of being capable of such terrible crimes. Under interrogation, Joe admitted to murders, but he claimed that he had been driven to kill by voices in his head. He said that he had been visited by the devil, who had commanded him to kill in order to appease his insatiable hunger for souls of the innocent. The townspeople were horrified by John Doe's confession, and they were even more horrified when he was found guilty and sentenced to death. But even as he was led to the gallows, Doe continued to insist that he had been possessed by a demon and that he was not responsible for his actions. As the noose was tightened around his neck and the trapdoor opened beneath his feet, Joe let out a blood-curdling scream, and some say that even as his body swayed in the breeze, the sound of his screams could still be heard echoing through the streets of Millfield. The murders stopped after Doe's execution, but the memory of the horrors he committed lived on. The townspeople never forgot the terror that had been inflicted upon them, and they were forever changed by the experience. Many left Millfield unable to cope with the memories of what had happened, and those who stayed, the nightmares continued for years to come. Years passed, the town started to forget the terror that was inflicted upon them, but some stories were passed on down from generation to generation. Some people claimed that they have seen the ghost of John Doe wandering the streets at night, still searching for more souls to appease his insatiable hunger, and some claimed that they have heard his screams in the middle of the night. Millfield was forever known as the town of the butcher, the town of the serial killer, and it was avoided by all. If you like what you've seen or listened to, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe. I'll see you guys later. Be careful.